In most podcasts and studios, including ours, the Shure SM7B is the microphone of choice. It's visually recognizable, it sounds great, and establishes authority as the industry standard. But what most people who don't own one of these don't know is that they're kind of a pain to work with. In today's episode of Behind the Brain, we're sharing the brutally honest truth about the downsides of the SM7B, along with the reasons why we still use them in our studio despite them. For those who don't know, we at BrainStem Studios create podcasts and produce videos for clients in San Diego's North County. If you want to make the best podcasts possible and don't want to deal with all this technical headache, we've got your back. But if you're on a razor-thin budget, or you're as nerdy as we are, let's talk about this legendary microphone. First, an obligatory history lesson. Shure actually introduced the original SM7 in 1973. With almost the exact same form factor, Shure's SM line of microphones has dominated both recorded and live audio to this day. The original SM7 captured both the most iconic radio voices and some of the best studio performances from stars like Mick Jagger, Michael Jackson, and Whitney Houston. Over 50 years later, SM57s and SM58s are some of the most widely used microphones in live performance, and the SM7B doesn't seem to be going anywhere. However, Shure recently did just come out with the SM7DB, its first change in over 20 years, offering it as an option alongside this original version that's still available. We'll talk about why this exists when we get to challenges, but it says a lot about the struggles the standard SM7B has presented. When I say challenges, I mean that the SM7B's biggest feature is also its biggest downfall. This microphone is dynamic, with extremely low sensitivity, requiring large amounts of gain to get any signal out of it. As mentioned, nearly countless products exist to remedy these issues, such as cloud lifters or other various signal boosters. Some interfaces, such as our Rodecaster, have especially strong preamps specifically to accommodate microphones like these, but plenty of devices will still need the extra help of a signal boost. Shure even launched their SM7DB, which has a built-in preamp to boost the signal in the microphone and allow it to work in more generalized use cases. But if you're starting from scratch and just looking to invest in a high-quality microphone, should you look at the SM7B? As always, the answer isn't black and white, but I'd probably lean towards a no for the average person. Let me explain. My main issue with recommending this kind of microphone is the $400 price tag. If you're on a remotely tight budget as you build your own audio setup, I just honestly can't recommend this. It's not a bad microphone, but countless other options exist at a fraction of the cost that will get you a large portion of the way there without requiring additional preamps, specialized mixers, or an even more expensive microphone in the SM7DB's case. If you were especially budget-minded, I'd recommend a Rode PodMic, a Scarlett 2i2, and a cheap set of secondhand studio monitors. I picked up a set of KRK Rocket 8s, for example, for $50 off Facebook Marketplace, and the used market typically has tons of options between $100 and $200. This means you could have a full-fledged audio setup for the price of just this microphone. Or if you're focused on just recording, you could get a Zoom PodTrack P4 and 4 Rode mics for only $50 more than a single SM7DB. I would argue that the SM7B sounds better at the end of the day, but I'd also argue that for the average person, you can definitely get by with less. For a better point of reference, I wanted to compare both of these microphones side by side in an identical environment. So this is the SM7B, this is the PodMic, this is the SM7B up close and personal, this is the PodMic all up close and personal. And if I just do a terrible job of being anywhere near the microphone and I'm this far away, this is the SM7 and this is the PodMic. As you can see, they're somewhat similar, but there is a noticeable difference. Whether or not that difference is worth $300 a piece is gonna be up to you. But there is also a group that will want one of these. And that's going to be anyone who does want a great sounding microphone that also establishes visual authority and isn't afraid to pay the price. If you don't have a tight budget, these can be a great way to improve your audio quality while also boosting your production quality to your audience's first glance. In our studio, for example, we use these just as much for the visual and the reputation that comes alongside them as we do for the sound quality they provide. Another serious positive to these microphones is how well they work when used incorrectly. In a studio setting like ours, where we have varying clients and guests with all levels of experience, it doesn't matter how often we tell them to stay close to the microphone. Most of them don't do it. This is honestly where we tend to see the SM7B stand out the most from the competition in our experience. Whether you're as close as you should be, or we're having to push the gain on our end to compensate for our clients, the sound we get is still super solid. For our fast-paced use case where we can't really afford to make any avoidable mistakes, something like this that saves our back is a no-brainer. Now, if you are going to pick up one of these, Make sure you've done your research to know which one you should buy. If you don't already have an audio interface, you'll need one to convert the analog XLR audio into a digital signal. And if you have one already, look at how much gain its preamps can provide. For the lazy among us, you can also just Google SM7B, whatever your interface is, and you can usually find what others have experienced. If you see a lot of people struggling with your configuration, you might want to upgrade to the SM7DB. Or if you already have an SM7B, but you aren't happy with the sound you're getting out of it, try out a cloud lifter or another interface or another signal booster that can improve the gain before you add the digital gain in post. But if you're starting anew, I'd recommend saving the headache and spending the money on the SM7DB so that you have a wider application for it. Overall, I can't stress enough how important audio clarity is to podcasts, whether or not they have video. Bad video isn't always easy to watch, but bad audio is especially hard to ignore. Thus, deciding how you set up your audio can be essential to how easy of a watch your content will be. We're working on some future videos diving into other ways to improve your audio beyond your microphone, such as room treatment or software tricks. But for now, we hope you learned a thing or two about these overrated, but also legendary microphones. Thanks as always for watching.